America is home to 33 million small businesses, the beating heart of communities across the country.
And proof that the American dream is still alive.
This is a show about those dreamers and doers and the communities they serve.
Their real life stories.
Their struggles and successes.
Their grit, determination, and passion.
And the people who fight
to keep their American dream alive.
I'm Alfredo Ortiz.
I'm Elaine Parker.
And it's time for another episode of Main Street Matters,
America's small business megaphone. Hi, everybody, and welcome to another episode of Main Street Matters, America's small business megaphone. I'm Elaine Parker with the Job Creators Network. As the 2026 tax filing season begins, Trump-era tax cuts are back in the spotlight. Many Americans are seeing real, measurable benefits. This is a critical moment for workers, families, and small business owners to understand how to legally keep more of what they earn. Joining us today to discuss it all is Mark J. Quann, financial expert and author of Be Smart, Pay Zero Taxes. He's also the founder of The Perfect Portfolio, helping Americans build wealth using the buy, borrow, die strategy, and author of 4 personal finance books, including the #1 tax guide in America. Mark, welcome to Main Street Matters.
Glad to be on with you guys. I love how people stutter on the buy, borrow, die. They're like, buy, borrow, die? What is that? So it's a fun strategy. We'll talk about that today.
I read it a million times, and yet I continue to keep stuttering on it. It really does kind of stop you when you're reading it. It's buy, borrow, die strategy. What is that? Tell us about it.
Okay, so it's not a new strategy. It actually goes back to the Great Depression, where a banker in Quincy, Florida, created more millionaires out of like farmers and regular people during the Great Depression. There was Coca-Cola stock that fell, and there was a banker there that understood that you can borrow money and it's not taxed, and then you can invest it, and if you never sell, it's not taxed. So he would, like, for example, lend a farmer $2,000 to buy Coca-Cola stock because it was down during the Great Depression. But then he'd say, hey, now you have the $2,000 of stock. Let me lend you another $2,000 secured by your stock, so you could buy farming supplies and tractors and things. And these farmers got super wealthy. And they took a loan, they bought Coca-Cola stock, and then they took a loan from that, secured by it, to buy their farming equipment. So this is just examples of this buy and borrow strategy. Has been used since the Great Depression. The strategy itself was coined in the 1990s at the University of Southern California, a guy named Edward McCaffrey. It's at the Gould School of Law. And he basically realized that, hey, tax avoidance is really easy. It's super simple. Buy assets, stocks, ETFs, life insurance, real estate, crypto, precious metals, whatever, Bitcoin, whatever, assets with limited supply. Okay, that's the key, limited supply, real estate things. Buy assets, and then when they appreciate, don't sell them, borrow from one asset to buy another asset. Well, loans aren't income, so you literally circumvented the tax system. You didn't sell, so you didn't trigger capital gains taxes. And then when you borrowed, you didn't pay income taxes, which is the highest form of taxes. And you just do buying and borrowing and accumulate assets tax-free. And then when you die, under current tax code, if you're married, you can die with up to $32 million. There's a step up in basis, and all that 30 million goes to your family. The family takes the 32 million and does buying and borrowing, and they can be worth hundreds and hundreds of millions of dollars within that next generation, even if not become a billionaire. That's how people become billionaires. Anybody can do it. You can start with $100 in your brokerage account.
So walk me through kind of a modern day example. Let's use real estate, for example. You've got, say, an investment property, a rental. You've got a renter in there. You're obviously getting passive income that way, but you've got a tremendous amount of equity in the house. Walk me through an example of what you would do in that scenario.
Okay. I'll use the example of when I moved from Los Angeles to Knoxville, Tennessee. Okay. The first thing that people realize is when they buy houses, they buy real estate with debt. Okay. So you are doing buy, borrow, die. You just don't know it. Okay. But the house that I bought when I first came to Knoxville was $400,000. It had a house upstairs and I could rent the downstairs. But the point is, I bought that house with 3% down. Okay. So I bought it with about, we'll call it 12,000 just for simple. Where did I get the other money from? Right. All the rest of the money was created as debt. I didn't work for the money. I took a mortgage for 300 and call it 70,000 or after step, but we'll call it 390,000. Okay, I took a 390,000. Where did the money come from? It was created in a computer. That's new money. You didn't have to work for the money. So I bought real estate with essentially digital entries in a computer. That's it. Why would I want to work hard for it? Now the house has been going up. I've been paying the debt down, but I get a tax deduction on most of the payment, which is sweet. So I'm reducing my taxes. But if I never sell the property, now we lived in the property for 2 years. I bought another property for $500,000. I'm sitting in it right now. Okay. I put almost nothing down on this property. They lent me another 500 grand. I didn't work for it and I didn't pay taxes for it. I avoided income taxes on $500,000 and I didn't work for it. Well, the house goes up, the debt disappears because it's priced in US dollars. Makes sense? Inflation makes me wealthy, and the value of the dollar going down also makes me wealthy because the debt's disappearing. So when you buy real estate, you are doing buy, borrow, die. The problem is people try and pay it off and they do the opposite. You're actually doing the opposite of the wealthy. So the first step was great, buy a home. Pay it off, that's the worst mistake. You're supposed to borrow from that house to buy more real estate because you're creating hundreds of thousands. That's $900,000 that I created in a computer that I used to buy real estate and I didn't pay taxes on it. I borrowed another 800,000, by the way, just for investing too. So I took on 1.6, $1.7 million of debt in the last 2.5 years, and I'm getting wealthy because of it. It's all in real estate, gold, precious metals, stocks. So the debt disappears as it's priced in US dollar and the assets go up. So you don't need to work hard. You need to have a high financial IQ to get wealthy. Working hard has nothing to do with it. Although I do work hard. I love what I do. I mean, I put a lot of hours in to build a company, but to me, this is fun.
Well, I have a family member who is very afraid of debt, afraid of
Okay.
leveraging himself. If you don't have the money in the bank, you don't use credit to buy it. There's
Okay.
a fear of credit there. What is your advice to? I mean, I assume there are a lot of Americans out there that feel that way, particularly with the credit card. 1.4 trillion dollars in outstanding credit card debt. It sounds like a scary number. What is your advice to someone like that?
So you have two choices, right? Some other people are getting wealthy with your money. Okay. So your money is making other families wealthy, or you learn to use other people's money and make yourself wealthy. There's bad debt, credit cards, cars, TVs, all that stuff is just, it goes down in value. Okay. There's unlimited, they buy things with unlimited supply. They can just be mass produced. Okay, that's bad debt. Good debt is when I buy assets with limited supply, real estate, gold, precious metals, Bitcoin. I buy highly profitable artificial intelligence companies. I'm buying assets that go up as the dollar goes down. That's the difference. Is if you buy a TV, you buy it with their, by the way, about 30% of a cost of a TV is just taxes, right? And then it's worth nothing after you buy it. So you're buying things that go down in value. I'm buying things that go up in value because they have limited supply. And I get rich from borrowing money. I can borrow money at 5% interest right now. I feel like, but you have a $5 interest payment. No, I saved 30% in taxes by pressing a borrow button and I didn't work for it. And I'm fighting inflation with inflation. So I was joking around the other day. I was like, I'm going to start a show called the Not Dave Ramsey Show, right? So because that strategy works until when we had real money. When our dollar was tied to gold, we had real money. But that hasn't been that way for a long time. That will not work. You'll never get ahead by working hard, saving money, getting good credit, pay your taxes, fund a retirement account. You're guaranteed to lose. I can run the numbers all day long. You're guaranteed to lose. And you're making other families wealthy. You're making the government wealthy and you're making Wall Street wealthy. Your money is being used to, you're making other families wealthy. I just use other people's money. I don't work for it. I don't pay taxes and I'm getting wealthy. But anybody can do it. I've taught this. I can teach this to a homeschool 13 to 18. I teach them this strategy between 13 to 18. They get it immediately. Their parents can't get it. They're like, oh no, I can't do that. I'm like, wait a second. So if a person follows that method and they go, oh, I just want cash, great. You're going to work super hard for the rest of your life. You're going to be massively taxed into the grave, and you have to fight inflation, which is 6%. The Federal Reserve prints 6% more money every single year. So you can't say that inflation's 2 to 3. They've been manipulating inflation since the 1980s. So if you're going to say, I want to stay out of debt, that's a choice once you're educated. You can work super hard, spend your life working while fighting taxation and inflation, which you're not going to win. It's impossible. Or you can get educated and you can learn to do the buy, borrow, die strategy. It doesn't require hard work. Initially, you have to do the work, but then you just use debt. I'll give you an example. And I'll ask your friend this and I'll ask everybody this. If you could borrow money at 4% interest right now and invest it at 5% interest, how much money would you borrow and when would you pay it back?
I'm not sure.
You would borrow infinite amounts of money and never pay it back because you would borrow money at 4 and invest it at 5. So is Bank of America? I was
trying to think of a number.
No, infinite and never pay it back. That's the answer. If you're, you know what I mean? Now, people are like, well, I'm trying to get out of debt. No, the banks take on massive debt. How does the bank make money? They borrow money at a lower interest rate and they invest it at a higher rate. The bank's not trying to get out of debt. That's crazy. All the money is debt. Your paycheck is debt. Your paycheck, all the money doesn't exist. It's digital entries in a computer. They don't exist. Money does not exist. It's all debt. They print $1 and they create 9 more as digital entries as debt. If you're trying to get out of debt, that's crazy. But debt avoids working hard. Working hard is highly taxed. State taxes, federal taxes, Medicare, and Social Security taxes. And then inflation, which is 6%. You can't win. The state taxes, the federal taxes, Social Security, Medicare, then you have to fight inflation. You're just not going to win. I guarantee it. I mean, $1 million in a retirement account right now. Somebody's 65, they're listening to this, they have $1 million in a retirement account at 65. You can take $33,000 a year out of there, minus taxes, and that's just enough to trigger taxes on your Social Security payments. So even a millionaire at 65 right now, you're gonna retire with a tough time.
So if you extrapolate all of this to, say, a small business owner who is looking to take a loan to invest in their business and expand their operations, build a new building, you then have to hire more people. So you need money for that investment. So you're going to the bank to do that. It's not exactly the same as I'm borrowing at 4% and I'm investing at 5%. But
right.
When you're looking at that, how much impact does the Fed's interest rate impact you as a small business owner? How important does it then become for those interest rates to come down so that the small business owners can take those loans and invest?
It depends on which rules you play by. Okay. Let's say a small business owner there has a brokerage account. I don't care, Fidelity, Schwab, and they're buying stocks and ETFs. Okay. If they're growing that account and they want a business loan, they can they can take a low interest loan around 5%. They can send it to their bank account and fund their business. So their investments still stay intact. They grow, never pay taxes on it. They can fund their business with a low interest loan. That loan, it requires no application, no credit check. It doesn't report to their credit report, and there's no required payments on the loans. I currently borrow at 5%. And then I invested in other assets. Now, as a business owner, here's the trick. That's a double tax deduction because you got a tax deduction to fund your business, with money that was never taxed. The government now owes you money when you start a business. If you have a money that's taxed, let's say you needed 5,000 for your business and you had a brokerage account with 25 grand in it. You needed 5 grand. If you work hard for that 5 grand, that money is taxable. If you donate it, it's not taxable. But if I take a margin loan and I invest 5 grand in my business in supplies or something like that, that's a tax deduction on the 5 grand. The government owes me 2,000 now. It's a double tax deduction. You can do this for charitable donations to a church or charity or anything like that. I build assets. If I borrow to fund a charitable donation of some kind, double tax deduction. I borrow to fund my business, double tax deductions. And we're not even getting into advanced strategies. I'm sitting downstairs on my rental property.
So that's borrowing. Yeah. So you're borrowing from yourself to fund your business operations, and you're taking the double taxation that way.
Yeah, when you say from, it's really borrowed secured by the asset. It actually creates new money. If I have $25,000 over here and I borrow $500, I invest that. This $500 that didn't exist. It's created as new money, and I don't work or pay taxes on it. I just create it. Now, if I donate, I spend it on a business expense or donate to a church or charity, that's deductible, and the government owes me money. So I don't do tax deductions. I do double tax deductions all the time. I've got a speaking engagement in April in California. I'm going to fly out there. My wife and I are going to fly out there. We'll have a great time, spend time with family and friends out there, and I'll write the whole thing off my taxes. I can take a margin loan and pay for the flights and everything. I can write it off my taxes. My whole entire lifestyle is a tax deduction, but I take double tax deductions, not just single tax deductions. These are IRS rules. Here's just to make it more crazy. I never pay back the loan. I don't even pay the interest. And the IRS allows me to write off the interest even when I don't pay it. This is how rich people live. And this is how they get rich. And anybody can do this.
Well, I remember when Donald Trump was running the first time in 2016, and he was debating Hillary Clinton, and she was accusing him of being, this is a very viral clip.
Yes.
Dave Chappelle has used it in his stand-up, is that he basically said, she called him, a rich guy, basically stealing, not paying his taxes. And he said, I'm working by your rules. If you don't like it, have you and your friends change the rules, change the laws. But I work all this. He was very honest with the American people. And I think that was such an eye opener for people, that they hadn't heard that from a politician, and just be so honest. And I remember Dave Chappelle's final line was, and with that, a star was born. I mean, it was just fantastic how he talked you through. Yeah, one of my favorite comedians.
Oh, he's the GOAT. He's the GOAT for sure. He's amazing.
I mean, yeah, he really is. He's funny as can be. But going to Trump and sort of the tax cuts in general, there's been a lot of misinformation. I love the word misinformation. There's been a lot of misinformation about the Big Beautiful Bill, the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act of 2017, that it all went to the wealthy people. And but when you really look at what some of those provisions were in the 2017 bill and in the bill last year, they are directly aimed at small businesses, entrepreneurs, Main Street, everyday ordinary Americans. Do you know any average Americans, or do you know any millionaires who get overtime or tips? Because I don't. I don't know any of them. But those people who earn tips and overtime now get no tax on tips and overtime. It's amazing.
It's huge. This is the biggest help for middle America I have ever seen. Bigger standard deduction, 32,000. No taxes, right? So that's the first base. You get no taxes on. More child care credits. That's for people with children. You get bigger credits. And there's a deduction and there's a credit. Credit means here's free money. It's not taxable. Deduction means you get to take it. So they're tax credits. Small business owners, 199A. You kidding me? The first 20% of your income isn't taxed, which is great. So it's layering these tax deductions. And by the way, if you're rich, you don't get that deduction. They remove it. 199 is gone if you make too much money. So it eliminates the larger businesses. Now I can get around all taxes, by the way. So, but no, but you have to be. It helps. No taxes on tip, no tax on overtime. I mean, it's the greatest tax benefit ever. By the way, Trump did it back in Tax Cuts and Jobs Act. It was the same thing. It helped middle America huge back then. We had a booming economy. We had massive, like lowest unemployment rate since 50 years or something like that. It was crazy, right? So he's doing it again, um, but he's got a lot of headwinds, like inflation. All those things are headwinds. When you send all your manufacturing to other countries for 50 years, it's hard to reverse that. You know what I mean? It takes a little bit of work. You can't just snap your fingers and solve the problems. But from a financial standpoint, not political standpoint, it's amazing for middle America. But no, it really is. It doesn't really matter what the government does or the tax benefits. What matters is your financial IQ. You just have to understand it. And you can't count on a financial advisor. They're clueless. I used to train them for 15 years. I trained hundreds of financial advisors. I was training CPAs. I mean, it was ridiculous. And I'm like, this is the blind leading the blind. And here's why. I'll give you guys a real factual thing. All financial literacy comes from the Financial Regulatory Authority. Okay. They are a private company funded by the banks and they basically provide all the what you call this financial literacy. This is everything that goes colleges, universities, it goes to Pepperdine and Yale and Harvard. Even at University of Southern California, where they coined the phrase, you will not learn the buy, borrow, die strategy. It's too effective. It just anybody can do it. It can be implemented. It's very simple and easy to understand. They want complexity in the financial industry. They want to make it so complex you need to go find a financial advisor. But the financial advisors might die at their desk. They don't know how to retire. They don't know how to avoid taxes. They only know how to stuff money into retirement accounts because that's feeding Wall Street. Because the source of financial literacy is Wall Street and big government. So everything you've got is just dump it all. Just start from scratch. Buy, borrow, die. Buy assets, never sell them, borrow from them, and then die with no taxes. It's that simple. I can teach this to an 8-year-old or a 13-year-old, and I am. So,
and why do you think Americans are in such dire straits when it comes to financial literacy? I mean, are our schools failing us? Is that where the financial industry wants us to be, like you mentioned, so that we're dependent on them in that respect? Like, how do we sort of get the train on the tracks? Because we do need some more fiscal literacy. It's something that is just sorely missing in our country.
I mean, it's that when you go to school, you're not getting educated. You're being indoctrinated.
You should give our audience your educational background.
I'm a high school dropout. I went to school. I thought it was stupid. I was like grade 9. I was like, this is dumb. This is not, I'm being taught by teachers who are broke, who don't know how to do anything. They're stuck here. They don't like their jobs or whatever. I was like, this is stupid. So I left school, grade 9. I went to college because they can do that in Canada. I'm very self-educated. I read books, whatever. I just keep reading and educating myself. And then went to college in Canada because you can do that. I'm in school for finance, economics, business, just killing it. I was like, this is a scam. You know why? Because I sat in meetings where the bankers, the banksters, which I call them, were providing funding to the colleges and universities. And I was the vice president of the Students Association in Canada in the college I was in. And they were giving us money. So they were bribing us to let credit card companies come into the schools. And they were bribing the college to get these students in debt. I'm like, this whole system is a scam. College is a scam. The whole schooling system is set up for you to fail. That's why 99% of the people are failing. And the one strategy that they could teach in schools, and they don't, is buy, borrow, die. It's so simple. But here's the thing. They don't want simplicity. They want complexity. HSA 529, SEP IRA 457, 401k, 403b, SEP IRA, because they confuse you, because then you need to go get a financial advisor, but the financial advisor is educated by Wall Street and big government to overtax you, keep you working forever. If you're working forever, you're paying income taxes, right? And then a 401k keeps you working. And then the 401k is taxed at regular income tax rates, which taxes your Social Security payments. It's triple taxation, right? So feel like, I mean, it's just, you got to delete everything. Start. I mean, I've got 4 books on this stuff. I started with my first book I wrote took me 5 years, Rich Man, Poor Bank, in 2009 to 2014. Learned to write a book. Wrote a next one in 2018. The next one at the start of coronavirus. And then it was actually Newsmax who reached out to me and asked me to write Be Smart, Pay Zero Taxes to prove that ordinary Americans can use the buy, borrow, die strategy. And I've taught it to 600, 700 people right now. I'll do a new, 400 or 500, 600 this year. And then homeschooling students too. So between 13 to 18, we're having their parents set them up these accounts and teach their kids the strategies. So it's pretty cool. I taught the guy who built my deck in Knoxville. I taught it. The guy who was doing the electrical upstairs, I taught him the strategy. The guy who's installing a floor on the other house right now, taught him the strategy, and his 3 buddies. So it's like they're all construction workers and stuff. I'm teaching them the Bible, setting them up on their cell phones. They start with $100, and I teach them the strategy. And I'm just running around Knoxville hoping anybody who just happens to listen to me. So it's fun.
Well, I think it's important to talk about the fact that you don't have the formal education, but you saw education, and that's important. But I think that it really clarifies what's missing in our country with everyday average Americans is the fiscal literacy, and why people are having so much trouble and they're struggling. And I think if we had more fiscal literacy, we also wouldn't be so willing to let our politicians put us in debt, 37, 38
Right.
trillion dollars worth of debt, because Americans would understand how detrimental that kind of debt is to our future.
Yeah, we do have a problem with that, right? Between taxation, inflation, and bad debt, you can't win. It's just mathematically it's impossible. So yeah, avoiding bad debt. But here's the thing: when politicians and congressmen who don't know what they're talking about financially say, let's add financial education to the system. What do they teach you? Save money, get good credit, fund your retirement account, all that stuff. That's the system that makes sure you can't win. So when you say that, and I'll give you an example. There's a system they teach at the banking system teaches this. Well, this is a system how banking system indoctrinates children. They sell them 5 products. They teach you this when you're a financial advisor. Sell the client 5 products, because then they'll only come back to you for financial literacy. Well, this is a practice that came from the banking industry. They figured out that if you teach children and sell them 5 products, that will become the source of financial literacy. So all the big banks do this. They want to sell the kids 5 products. So they teach them save money, get good credit. Like, oh, mom and dad, the schools, yep, save money. They get you a checking account and a savings account, and then they get you a credit card. They've sold you 3 products. If they sell you 2 more, you'll go back to the financial industry for all your financial education, and you'll send your children there too. So they want to save money, get good credit, fund a retirement account. So you're thinking it's so harmless. Save money, get good credit, get a checking account and a savings account. Oh, get that student credit card. Oh, get an auto loan, set you up a Roth IRA. Boom, sold you 5 products. The source of financial literacy will be a publicly traded bank that is probably funding. How do I say this? Those same banks have been laundering money for drug cartels, the Sinaloa cartels. They provided all the banking system for the Ponzi scheme, Bernie Madoff, and they provided the banking system for bank accounts for Epstein. They paid hundreds of millions of dollars very recently for doing all these things. So we're getting our financial literacy from a system that knows how to trap your children. Save money, get good credit, fund a retirement account. That's it. They sell you 5 products, you'll go back to the banks. because they're called financial advisors. Ah, but the financial advisors can't retire. It's that deep. It's the matrix. Put you in the matrix when you're a kid. You'll struggle. You'll work till you die. And Wall Street and big government get rich. So it's that sinister. It really is. I've seen it all. I wrote about it. And so when you say, oh, put financial literacy, okay, what are we teaching? See, I don't teach that stuff. I teach the children about the 5 things and how the bank traps them. And then I teach them to open up a brokerage account, to invest it. There's a little algorithm that invests for you. And then there's a borrow button. And I teach children buy, borrow, and die. They get it. There's like 14-year-olds going, man, I'm going to buy, borrow, die. They're not worried about improve my credit score. You know what? Because I borrow money, they don't even check my credit. I can have a 500 credit score and no job, and I still get to borrow money at 4.9% interest right now, and I don't have required payments. So the wealthy the wealthy live in a different universe. Like, it's so different. We just don't even live in the same universe. It is the Matrix, right? If it was the Matrix, we're like, it is the Matrix. So people need to understand the system that financial literacy isn't financial literacy. It's banking indoctrination.
Well, I find it very interesting. I think your book is an eye-opener. I look forward to finishing it. That's Be Smart, Pay Zero Taxes. And your strategy is Buy, Borrow, Die strategy. So I look forward to learning more about it. Can you tell everyone where they can go and buy your book?
You can get it at Amazon. Be Smart, Pay Zero Taxes on Amazon is probably the best place to get it. Our website is theperfectportfolio.com. We run a financial literacy company. So we're just out there educating people on this stuff. I can say it's life-changing. I know it. We have 600 people. It's not like some of them are winning. We got all 600 are winning. And again, you can start with $100. You can read about it in the book, where to set it up. And we help people set up the basic strategy every single day. So.
Well, Mark, thank you so much for taking the time to join us on Main Street Matters, America's small business megaphone. Main Street Matters is part of the Salem Podcast Network. New episodes debut every Wednesday and Friday. You can subscribe to the show wherever you get your podcasts from, and we'll be back soon with another episode. Bye for now.